Hi everybody, this is Oksana. Today we're going to be making this really fun pendant. This is a great pendant for beginners because it uses a bead, which is so much easier than cabochons, and it also uses 20 gauge round wire and only that wire. It doesn't use any thin weaving wire. There's no weaving, there's no half round wire. It has this fun little dangle, which is optional if you choose to add it, and you can make it out of just normal craft store wire, but since I made it out of raw copper wire, I chose to oxidize it, which I have a video on oxidizing. It just darkens the wire. It only works if it's raw copper. If it has like anti-tarnish on it or anything, then it doesn't oxidize, but I just wanted to show you the final look of how raw copper looks like when it's oxidized. So that's what this is here. So if you want to see how I made this pendant, just keep watching.
So for my wire, I'm using a 20 gauge round wire. This is dead soft copper wire, and I got this spool at riogrande.com. But this is a good opportunity to use craft store wire, which is easy to find. 20 gauge round wire is pretty standard at most craft stores. You should be able to find it in a brand like Artistic Wire. So this type of design should be easy to make without having to order all your supplies online. So this is 17 inches long, this one piece of wire that we're going to use. And then my bead is a coin bead, and most craft stores will carry beads as well. So you should be able to find a coin bead. It's basically like a round bead, but it's squished flat. You can, of course, also find these online. This is some type of Jasper. And it is, let's see here, 17, 18 millimeters. But yours doesn't have to be this identical size. Of course, just anything in this vicinity could be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, might be hard to work with. So I would probably recommend this size or bigger. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our wire and we're going to slide the bead on the wire until we get about to the middle. And when it looks like we've gotten to the middle, we're just going to push on whatever you want to be the bottom. So if you want the pendant to be like this will be the top, that'll be the bottom. Also, this bead moves, so you have to decide what you want to be the front side of the bead. So once you get to here, all you do is, you can use round nose pliers, but I'm not going to, just because I want this video to not have like a whole bunch of tools. I want this to be very beginner friendly. So the only tools you will need, I'll show them in a second, are cutters to cut the wire and just normal pliers. So I'm just making a little curve with my fingers. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to turn into like this beautiful little loop because it's going to get all hidden away. You just want some kind of loop here at the bottom. That's all you want. And then for the tools that I will be using, let me just show you real quick. So you just need some kind of cutters to cut the wire. And then you need some kind of pliers that are meant for jewelry. So the inside of them here is smooth rather than rough, like pliers in your tool kit. That's not for jewelry. They usually have the little ridges on the inside, so they will just chew up the wire and leave marks. So you want some kind of jewelry pliers, which you should be able to find at a craft store. Both of these are the Swanstrom brand, and they're also from riogrande.com. So I'm just going to hold this little loop that I had formed. Again, don't worry about it being like a beautiful, perfect loop. It could just be however it turns out for you. So I'm just holding it and just, pushing this wire here across the back. So that is what it ended up being, just a loop, and then the wire goes up across the back. And now we're at the top here, we have two wires, and at the bottom, we just have this little loop. So these two wires at the top, what you want to do is kind of bend them both so that they crisscross each other, and you have this nice little angle like this, because we're going to twist them. So for twisting, you want to go very slow and careful, and you want this, like imagine there's another line going right here through the middle. If you imagine that line, then you want this one to be up at like the same angle as this one is going down. You want there to be kind of equal distance from those to the line. So in other words, you don't want, like, if this one's like that, right? Now it wouldn't be equal. This one's like way higher. So that's the key for a good twist, is that you want to keep these at like an equal angle to this invisible line going through the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our first twist. I'm just holding them, and I'm using the bead to help me make the twist. And you can see the wire starting to twist, and I'm just going to go along with it. Then I'm going to open up and check that these haven't moved. So this one got a little higher, so I'm going to bring it down. Still trying to keep that nice symmetrical even angle. And then I'm going to make another twist, because what happens is if they're not at an equal angle, then one of these wires, instead of twisting evenly like this, one of the wires starts wrapping around the other wire, and that's the result that you end up with. So let's just keep twisting. And then another thing that you can do with the twist is that you can actually just press down on it to keep it kind of even and stuff. That helps as well. So the bead is sliding a little bit. There's a tiny gap there, but that's okay. We're going to fill that gap. Or you can actually, if you want to, hold right up against the gap with your pliers and then just twist a little bit, and that fills in the gap by creating another twist there. Okay, so I'm thinking this is almost tall enough. Maybe just one more of these. Okay, so I think this is tall enough now. I can measure it for you, but this is just the bail. So the bail can be any size. It can, you know, once you see what mine turns out like, you can decide whether you want your bail to be smaller or bigger. So for me, it ends up being about 3/4 of an inch. And what I'm gonna do, you want your twist to end so that this is the front of your bead. This is gonna be the front of your pendant, and the wires, you're seeing them just like this facing you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bend this forward towards you, and then if you have anything round, like a small little chopstick or something, that you can just bend this around to help you, or you can use your finger like I'm doing. I'm just using my finger to make a curve, but if you're having trouble with that, try using like a little chopstick or something kind of rounded. And then once you kind of have this curve, you can guide the rest of the wire with your pliers, and you want one wire to be on one side, one on the other. That's why I wanted them like that facing me, so that when I curve it down like this, it just goes like that. And here's the 2 wires. So this is our bail for your necklace to go through. So what we're gonna do with these 2 wires is we are gonna put them together. So I'm taking the left wire and I am bending it to the right so that it can be together with my right wire, like this. And what I'm gonna do now, the bead is still a little wobbly. We'll tighten it up though, it'll be fine. So what I'm gonna do, now that I have my 2 wires together, is I'm gonna keep them together and I'm gonna bend them up, and I'm gonna form a little swirl just by, you know, looping them upwards like this. All right, so that's for decoration, a little swirl on the front of our bale like this. And then we're gonna form another swirl, but it's gonna go in the other direction. And you can make them all in the same direction. Feel free to play around with this design and make all kinds of different swirls. You can make as many as you want. It's totally up to you. So here's my other swirl going in the other direction. And now I'm gonna make another swirl. So I'm basically swirling this all the way down the side of my bead. All right. And now I'm swirling it in the other direction, and I think I'm gonna check. I think this is gonna get me really close to the bottom now. So now if I kind of curve all of these swirls, just have them go down the side here to get to the bottom. Let's look. That almost gets me to the bottom. There's just a little bit of space there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a last and final little swirl like this. That's gonna go right here on the bottom. Let me just kind of curve that a little better. There we go. So if I'm looking at it straight on, here's my swirls down the side, and then here's my last little swirl here right over this loop. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take these wires, I'm gonna turn them here to the side like this, and then I'm gonna turn them just all the way around this little loop. Then we're gonna take our wire cutters and we're gonna cut them, but leave a little end. I'll show you what that looks like up close in a sec. So here's the little ends of our wires, and then here's that little loop that we formed in the beginning. So what you wanna do is you wanna take the little ends with your pliers and you wanna turn them into the loop like this. So that way, once they're kind of turned in there, you can press on them one at a time, or you can try to just get both at the same time, whatever works. And you have connected this wire to this loop, and now it's attached. Like before, this little side would move, but now it's not going to move. It's been attached, and you can just fix this up a little bit. If it got pushed down, you can mess around with these swirls. Like I'm going to press on this a little bit because there's a bit of a gap that I want to close up. If any swirls are not to your liking, maybe they're sticking out too far, you can kind of press on them. Try to get this how you want. And if the bead still wobbles a little bit, a trick that you can do is here on the back, this wire here, if you just take it and you put a bend in it, just like an angular bend, like that. That usually will stop it from moving. And if your bail got kind of shifted and doesn't look straight now, you can just turn it with your pliers if you need to do that. So this can be your pendant just all on its own, or there's one more optional step that you can do if you want to. You can take one of these little pieces of wire that you had just cut off, you know, the excess wire here that we trimmed after we finished making this last little swirl, and you can take a little bead. This is just a little glass bead. It doesn't have to be like this. It could be round. It could be any kind of bead. It's a little bit less than 10 millimeters, probably like 8 millimeters tall. But you don't have to use this type of bead. You can use a round bead as well. I made this type of pendant with a round bead, as you can see this here. So it can be any bead, but I'm just going to use this one for our pendant. So one thing that you are going to need if you're going to do this optional step is you're going to need some round nose pliers. So that's what these are. They look like the other pliers, but they're just, this part is completely round. So the reason we need them is because we need to make a tiny little loop here on the bottom so that our bead doesn't fall off, and then we're going to also make another little loop to attach the dangle. So if I just do this, it makes a tiny little loop, and then it's okay if your little loop is bigger. It doesn't have to be like super tiny. And then I'm just squishing it with my pliers like this. So this is going to be on the bottom. So I just made a little bend. I just held the little loop and I just kind of straightened the wire so it's going straight this way. So that way what happens is when we slide our bead, it doesn't fall off. That little loop there prevents it from falling off. So what we have to do now is make another loop so that we can attach it to our pendant to make the dangle. So have it face you, however you want it to hang. Like if you want the loop like this or like this, you have to decide between that. And then you can just, you can hold it with your pliers if you want, like this, by holding the loop. Or you can just hold the bead with your hands, but you want this wire to bend towards you. Just bend it towards you. So from the side, this is what you see. And then what you want to do is take your round nose pliers again. So the way my round nose pliers are is here is a very small pointed tip. Not all of them are like that. Some of them are wider. But if yours are like this and they're very small at the tip, this next part, don't hold with the tip. Hold with a slightly wider part because we want to make a loop, but we don't want to make like the smallest loop ever. We want to make a medium, small to medium kind of loop. So I'm just curving it around this part here. And then I'm going to bring it this way. So it's kind of going around the side and this way. So I formed a loop. Here's what that looks like. And now I'm just going to come in here like this, and I'm going to cut it. And then it's going to look like a hook, a little hook. So I'm just going to bend this just a smidge upwards because it kind of got pushed down. There we go. Here's our little hook. And then I'm going to take that hook and attach it to this. Just like that. So then all you want to do is take that little end of it there. Just grab it with your pliers. And then just bring it this way. You can even just push on the bead. And then what happens is it's closed. That little loop is closed. And it's attached. And it'll just dangle there. See how mine is kind of pointing to the side there? It's a little bit crooked. So I'm just going to take it and straighten it out. Alright, now it's much better. So now we have our pendant, and then we have the little dangle bead on the bottom. And here's what the pendant looks like after I have oxidized the copper. I think it really
it gives it a nice texture and dimension. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!